Hi everyone. In this video, we're diving into Chapter 4, which focuses on assessing needs. This chapter is incredibly important because everything else in program planning builds on this step. If we misunderstand the need, the rest of the program can miss the mark. By the end of this chapter, you should be comfortable explaining what we mean by need and needs assessment, as well as understanding concepts like capacity and community capacity. We will also talk about why needs assessment is such a critical part of planning, the difference between primary and secondary data, and where those data come from, and the steps involved in conducting a needs assessment. At its most basic level, a need is the difference between where we are now and where we want to be. Needs assessment, sometimes called a community health assessment or community diagnosis, is the process of identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing those gaps within a special population. Many experts consider this the most crucial step in the entire planning process because it allows to set the direction for everything else that follows. Alongside need, we also need to think about capacity. Capacity refers to the resources, the individual, organization, and community that allow action to happen. Community capacity goes a step further and looks at how well a community can identify problems, mobilize resources, and actually address those issues. It's not just what's wrong, it's also about identifying strengths that already exist. Needs assessment became more visible and more formalized because two major developments. The first one was the Public Health Accreditation Board now requires health departments to conduct needs assessments for accreditation. Second, the Affordable Health Care Act requires nonprofit hospitals to complete community needs assessments every 3 years. These policies made needs assessment a standard, not optional. Before jumping into data collection, planners need to ask some very key questions. What values are driving the assessment? And what is the purpose of this assessment? Are we looking broadly or trying to answer specific questions? We also need to consider whether a need has already been identified, whether similar assessments have been done, who will conduct the work, and how the findings will be used. Needs assessment rely on two main types of data. Primary data are data that's collected specifically for your project, while secondary data already exist and were collected for other purposes. Secondary data are usually cheaper and easier to capture, but may not fully capture the needs of your target population, depending on how the data was gathered. Primary data can come from different surveys, interviews, focus groups, community forums, or observation. Some methods, like the Delphi technique or nominal group process, involve multiple rounds of input. Each approach has strengths and limitations, so planners often combine methods to get a fuller picture. Secondary data often come from governments, agencies like the CDC, nonprofit organizations, existing records, or published research. While these data can be incredibly useful, planners must consider issues like validity, reliability, and privacy protection. The data may be accurate, but it may not always be specific to the target population. The literature is another important source of secondary data. Using databases like PubMed, CINAHL, PsycInfo, and ERIC allows planners to systematically review existing evidence. The flowchart shown here highlights how researchers narrow their searches to identify relevant, high-quality sources. GIS allows planners to visualize health data geographically. Mapping helps identify where health problems are occurring and how severely they affect different populations. Seeing data on a map can reveal patterns that numbers alone might miss. This chapter outlines a 6-step process for conducting a needs assessment. First, determine the purpose and the scope of your assessment. Second, gather data, primary data as possible. Third, analyze and prioritize needs, often using models like Pre-Seed, Proceed. Identify and prioritize risk factors. And fifth, determine the program focus by examining predisposing, enabling, and reinforcing factors. Finally, validate those findings before moving forward. Some assessments are more specialized. The health impact assessments evaluate how purposed policies or proposed policies or projects may affect population health. Organizational health assessments are commonly used in workplace wellness programs, and health organizations demonstrate compliance with ACA guidelines. To wrap up, needs assessment may be the single most important step in program planning. It requires thoughtful use of primary and secondary data, careful analysis, and intentional prioritization. Regardless of the method used, the goal is always the same: to finish with a clearly defined, evidence-based program that focuses and actually reflects the community needs.